Dairy farming. What do you think of when you think of dairy farming? Maybe you think of the milk you had in your coffee this morning. Maybe you think of the multi-billion-dollar industry in New Zealand. Maybe you think of cows or of the environmental impacts. No matter what you think of when you think of dairy farming, I'm about to change your mind completely. Let's talk about cows. There's 4.8 million cows in New Zealand, responsible for $13.4 billion worth of exports annually. Cows are a big deal, and they're also a big problem. But slime might just be the solution. But before we can understand the solution, we need to understand the problem. Environmentally, dairy has the nickname dirty dairy, and that's probably well-deserved. Intensive dairy farming results in excess nitrates leaching into the environment, which causes the overgrowth of toxic algae. 60% of rivers in New Zealand are considered unswimmable, and agricultural runoffs contribute to this. Economically speaking, dairy farms are ever expanding, but pasture is a finite resource. So to compensate for our huge dairy herds, we import 3 million tons of feed per year. But there's only so much of this nutritionally unbalanced feed that we can give to dairy cows before it starts to affect milk quality and animal health. So importing more and more feed is just not a sustainable option. Dairy farming has reached its economic, its environmental, and its social limits. Cows are a problem. And sometimes the solutions are found in the most unexpected places. Cows can produce 45 kilograms of excrement per day. A lot of this is caught in a milking shed, channeled into a big pit where it's sprayed back onto the pasture, where the nitrates leach into the environment before they can be absorbed. So why do we do this? Well, what else are we going to do with a big stinking pond of effluent? What else indeed? Introducing the slimy solution to dirty dairy farming. Rather than using this nutrient-rich resource haphazardly by spraying it in the sewage sprinkler onto pasture, where it promotes the growth of toxic algae, let's redesign effluent ponds into algal growth ponds. Here, we can grow beneficial algae that act as a water treatment system, removing nitrate from water. The algae can be captured and used as cow feed, and they can even be used to produce biofuels. So what does a system like this look like? Well, first, the effluent is captured in a big pit where the largest particles sediment out to the bottom and can be removed. Then it's diluted, and algae can grow in algal growth ponds, where 95% of nitrogen can be removed from the wastewater and converted into algal protein. And then finally, in a big tank, the algae can be allowed to sediment, where they can be collected and utilized for further processing. Processed into what? Well, your average algal cell looks something like this. We can squish these algae cells really hard, and we end up with oils and this fibrous cell wall. This cell wall isn't good for much unless you happen to be a cow, in which case it's a great source of nutrition. This husk can be ground up and fed to cows. It has high levels of vitamins, almost every vitamin. It has 5 times the protein of palm kernel extract, and it's even palatable. More than that, it can increase milk production by a staggering 20%, and it can even change the fatty acid profile of milk to make it healthier for humans to consume. And what about the oils that we squished out of the cell? They can be used to produce biodiesel. This is a sustainable oil that can replace diesel in fossil fuel engines. This reduces our reliance on importing fuel and on oil drilling. While it's too expensive to be economic overseas, and in New Zealand, where oil is so much more expensive, algal biofuel is competitively priced. So how much product can we produce? On an average dairy farm with 420 cows, we can produce 50 tons of algal feed and 150,000 liters of biofuel on 1 hectare. This is the most efficient crop in the world. Now, what about the economics? According to a recent Queensland study, it would cost $100,000 to implement a system like this. A dairy farm can pay that off in 4 years in saved feed costs alone. So what are the drawbacks to this technology? Well, Aside from the initial economic investment that can be paid back really quickly, the main challenge is there has to be enough sunlight for the algae to grow. But there's sufficient sunlight in 85% of New Zealand. So there you have it, a slimy solution to dirty dairy farming. By converting effluent ponds into algal growth ponds, we can reduce the environmental imprint of dairy farming by reducing nitrate leaching. We can create a cheap and quality feed that's better for our cows than imported feed. We can increase milk production, make healthier milk, and produce biofuels, all in an economically viable and environmentally sustainable way. Not bad for a little slime.